I'm so happy that I found it, because I really wanted to have this chance to talk about Mondrian, because as I said, Mondrian and Theo van Doesburg and Gary Rietveld, they were the pillars of the Stijl, and he deserves to be talked about. I get inspired by Rietveld's birthday. So he was a little older than Rietveld, was born in 1886 or 1888 anyway. So he lived for 72 years. Yeah, 28 by 44, yeah, 72. Great painter. I love Piet Mondrian. And he was a mystic, and he was at first in his, you probably know his abstract paintings with the vertical and the horizontal, or with a rotated canvas. But initially he was a figurative painter who was obsessed almost by flowers and churches. And this in itself is worth talking about. Why would Piet Mondrian be so interested in flowers and churches? But if you think about what a flower is and what a church is, then you understand. Is the work, they are both connected with divinity, with God. Flowers are beautiful celebrations of nature that grow towards the sky, towards light, towards the sun, and bloom towards that mystery that we call in various ways. And then the cathedral or the church does the same thing. This is in his older age. I don't know about that mustache, but you can tell he's a serious man, and he was indeed a very serious man. I like this picture of him. He's a man, almost makes me think a little bit of Lucian, our painter. Maybe he had some suffering, but he's a man who went through the trials and errors of spirituality. And his paintings move towards that kind of, going beyond the accidents of ephemerality. He searched for what was essential. Interesting man, interesting painter. Look at him now. Now, some think that an artist is some kind of a criminal in disguise. And maybe you can see that in him. In what sense criminal? In the sense that you first actually start with yourself. You kill yourself in the sense that you give everything you have for your artwork. You empty yourself of your own life so that your canvas becomes alive, or your sculpture becomes alive, or your building becomes alive. It's a great effort, and sometimes, and maybe oftentimes, society doesn't support you. So it requires truly an exhaustion, an utter exhaustion. And you kind of see it here. I love Mondrian. I could almost understand why he didn't dance. He was sublimating his own sensuality through his painting, through his art. He became very successful, of course. His suffering was compensated by the joy of doing great artworks and succeeding. Not everybody had this chance, although maybe other people, made equally significant efforts. It is said that when he lived in Paris, he had 2 rooms in his apartment. One room was exactly like his paintings from his later years, very ordered with verticals and horizontals. But then he had another room which was a total mess. And in a way, this shows the dichotomy between the 2 sides of any human being, artist or not artist, that we all have, I think, this kind of duality. On one hand, we long for order, for discipline, and on the other hand, we are wrecks. We are a mess. So this is the room that was kind of like his paintings. And look at his posture too. He's very vertical. He's just straight. He's like. But I understood, as I said, that there is another room. There was another room, very, very, very different. Now he lived in various places, so maybe this was not true in all circumstances. you can almost tell that this is a man with spiritual aspirations. It's like, you know, a monk living here. Early paintings. I love these early paintings. Look what he painted. He painted, you know, trees and silhouettes of trees and the sun, I guess, and again, trees. Um, and his trees are actually, you know, at times a little bit contorted, and you see the church in the background and the trees in the front, and you know, two different worlds in a way. The church is geometrical and solid, although it is just sketched. But the trees are kind of, you know, first of all, they don't have too many leaves, if at all, and you can tell that he was haunted. The church, and some suggestion of sunlight. Another tree. Actually, his later paintings derived their verticals and horizontals from these trees, and you can see the tree is approximating itself into some kind of a future development that renounced some of the so-called details or accidents and became, in the end, celebrations of purity, reduced aesthetically to exclusively, you know, most of the time, two lines, a vertical and the horizontal. The foliage of the tree is now abstracted into an artwork like this one or like this one. So it's not any longer the tree, it's not the foliage of the tree, but that's where it came from, and it moves towards what we will arrive at. Again, the tree. I mean, this is a tree that probably would have moved even Van Gogh. You know, it's an expressionistic, tormented tree. It is a tree that shows angst, shows anxiety. Please remember this image when we arrive at his boogie woogie series that he painted in New York, and it's such a transformation. It is almost unbelievable that the same artist painted this tree, this tormented and tormenting tree, and then he arrived at that pictorial jazz that the boogie woogie series is, and which is truly very joyous, and it is abstracted, but very, very joyous. Houses, another kind of the silhouette of a church, but this painting was not finished. Another church. So he had some kind of connection with architecture. He didn't build, though. He didn't exercise himself in the field of architecture at all. But you always see, you know, trees and houses or churches in his early works. Again, a house and trees. Another cathedral or church. And the Dutch do have, I have some books with the Dutch villages and towns. They have countless beautiful churches and cathedrals, mostly built with brick. Great buildings that are not present in the histories of architecture, but it's a great treasure, the architectonic treasure. Again, that tormented and tormenting tree. Now here we see the silhouette of the church and fragmenting itself towards some kind of an allusion to what was to come. Now this is an even earlier painting, much earlier. It's very figurative. I imagine he was around 20 when he did this. But always he is interested not just in landscapes, but landscapes in which there is also the work of man. Many times a house and the church, the cathedral, the church. So I think Mondrian, although he became one of the pillars of modernity in painting, he was I think he had faith. I think he believed. and why else would he be so interested to paint, countless paintings of churches and trees again? And yeah, it moves me because I see again this great country that has an incredible appetite for invention and avant-garde gestures, and at the same time is anchored in the traditions of its own culture, of its own environment, ambiance, but the tree again is kind of a little bit unsettling, so very different from the geometry of the roofs and the of the town or village in the background. Trees, church. Now this is we are stepping into the Here is the atelier of the artist, and his eyeglasses on the table. He's gone. Now this is already the Mondrian that we know, and you can see where he started from and where he arrived. So it took him some time to move away from figurative art towards abstract art. But there is still a continuity. You can see the transformation stages. This is one of the paintings, Boogie Woogie, that I was telling you about, that was done in New York. He lived also in his later years in New York. And they are called Broadway Boogie Woogie. And what a difference, no, from that anxious tree that we saw. Now, I am a little bit confused, because when I saw paintings by him, I actually saw how he was approximating the right position of a vertical and the right position of a horizontal, and he had very slight differences between traces. The way you could see in his paintings traces of the previous line until he found the perfect positioning. I thought he didn't use a T-square when he designed this, and although it's kind of hard to believe because the lines are straight, but when I saw the paintings, in so-called reality, I had a feeling maybe he just traced a thin line and then manually he painted these horizontals and verticals, countless variations, trying to find the perfect equilibrium between vertical and horizontal. So his struggle was towards abstraction, towards essence. I don't know if you know, but this great poet whom I admire very much, Charles Baudelaire, who was also an excellent art critic, he said something I think very important about art. He said art has two halves. One half is concerned with the eternal, with the immutable, with permanence, and the other half is concerned with what is transitory, circumstantial, ephemeral. And I agree with him. And just like a tree has the trunk, which is, has a certain level of permanence, but then you have in the spring the leaves and then the flowers, which are ephemeral. And you need both. And in terms of architecture, I would say we need both structure, meaning permanence to an extent, permanence, and the ornament, which is a reference to what is ephemeral and even capricious. Just like a tree, again, has the trunk, the structure, which, lasts even beyond the next winter, but then you have the ephemerality, sometimes the splendid ephemerality of the flowers in the spring, and also the leaves, the foliage. I think Baudelaire was right. Again, early works at the top and newer works at the bottom. And the new works now in the greatest museums of the world, including facing the sofa by Miss van der Rohe. Miss van der Rohe, who actually had a strange name, his name was actually not Miss van der Rohe. He changed his name into his mother's name. Rohe is his mother's name. Miss is his father's name, which actually means, in translated in English, lousy. But because he wanted his name to kind of sound, of a nobleman, he wanted to say to have his name Ludwig. Miss van Rohe. But Germany, the German customs, or I don't know, didn't allow him to do that because he was not a nobleman. So then he chose the Dutch form, which is Van der. So that's why his name is Van der Rohe. Kind of strange, because it's almost a built-in contradiction in the name. You know, he wanted the name to sound like a nobleman, but then the first name, which he received from his father, means lousy. So it's almost like saying a lousy nobleman. It was a self-derogatory linguistic gesture in the choice of his name. Strange. He has countless paintings like this. He was really searching for something. And maybe what he was searching for is what Rainer Maria Rilke, the great poet, said, that maybe the main challenge in life, the main test, the main problem is to make peace between man and woman, you know. And here we have, in a way, that we have the horizontal and the vertical in an interplay, in a dichotomy, in a dialectics, and here it is about the masculine principle and the feminine principle, and both exist within all of us in various percentages. In a way, he was searching for wholeness, kind of a yin and yang wholeness, but expressed through verticals and horizontals. I almost feel tempted now spontaneously to say that they are his prayers, his pictorial prayers. He prayed through his paintings. That's it.